We're not depressed, we're manic depressed. The wisest of people have been always quite concerned, not with our weaknesses, but with our strengths. You can see this in myths, in the Bible, in fairy tales, in the movies. I don't know, stupid example, Ring of Power. That is what brought Mordor down, exactly because it had that power. You know, at the end of the trilogy, you don't see actually anybody fighting. The final battle doesn't take place with Sauron. You just destroy this one small little thing, and it destroys Hall of Mordor. Why? Because there's so much power in this. So that's just one example. I could really go Golem. You know, you create something too powerful for you, and it destroys you. But now let's go back into economics. So see, no country goes bankrupt just because it grows slowly or grows flat or doesn't grow. Like a company doesn't go bankrupt just because its revenues are not going up. Or personally, if your wage doesn't increase, you don't go bankrupt just because it doesn't. You have to be one thing. If you want to go bankrupt, you have to be indebted. So it's not the lack of growth that's causing the collapses of our economies. It's the indebtedness. And we have taken this debt exactly in the good years. That's the sort of a strong irony in our case. We're not making so many we're not making so many mistakes in the depressive phase. There we know what to do. We put interest rates down, we put fiscal energy into it, da-di-da-di-da. Also, most of research on how to cure the economy has been created during depressions, you know, Keynes and everybody. And nobody's really focusing on this part. Here, the interest rate should be up. Here, fiscal should be fiscal should be in the surplus side. So we make most of our mistakes exactly in the manic phases. We have been, in our generation, we have been very hard trying to create a system which is growing fast, but is also unstable. So we have been buying speed at the expense of stability. And we have succeeded. We really, our Western civilization has created a system which can grow really fast, but also at a whim collapse. So it's like a sprinter that can run really quickly, but he cannot see the walls that are ahead of him. How have we done this? I always like to give an example of, if I take a loan of 10 million euros, only an absolute fool would say that I'm 10 million euros richer. Everybody knows the difference between owing money and owning money. I know that the difference between the two words is small, but in fact, it's a huge difference if I own the money or if I owe the money. Now, when a government does almost exactly the same procedure, in other words, 1 year it takes a deficit of 3% of GDP, pumps it into the economy, and let's just say that in that year the economy grows by 3% of GDP, so it's the same statistic. Everybody, including Harvard, MIT, Yale, educated economists go, yes, hallelujah, we are now 3% richer. Krugman and others, basically their argument is, I hope I'm summarizing this in a high fidelity way, but they're basically saying, let's go into debt, let's run deficits, so that we can jumpstart the economy, so that we can pay back our debts. Yeah, this is basically, I think, a proper description of what they're saying.
But he won the Nobel Prize.
Huh?
He won the Nobel Prize.
Congratulations. I mean, I like his other research, only at this point I fundamentally disagree. So, you know, what shall we do with this sentence? Well, you don't even have to be an economist to see how weird this logic is, because just take out the middle part of that sentence, the jumpstart the economy part, and what you get is, let's get more into debt so that we can pay our debts better. Worst case scenario is we'll learn nothing and we continue doing what we're doing, saving the problem that was created by excessive consumption at the expense of credit by even more excessive consumption at the expense of credit, because this is basically what we are doing. Next crisis will come. The economy has been moving in cycles since time immemorial. What we don't know is whether it comes tomorrow or whether it comes 10 years from now or 20 years from now, but it will come, as surely as day and night take turns. If it comes in a situation, if the next crisis comes, and it could be a bird flu, it could be a meteorite, it could be a war, it could be another banking crisis, it could be, I don't know, many things we don't know. It will always be a black swan in this respect. If it comes and finds us unprepared with these high levels of debt, that crisis could really tilt us over. You cannot really properly ask me which countries are doing ill, because those are not the biggest threat. In other words, I'm not afraid of the cars that are going slowly. I'm afraid of the strong cars driven by 16-year-olds or 18-year-olds who have no control over their body. This is, I think, sort of a nice way to describe our Western civilization. Individually, we're all very educated. We know what the problem is, but collectively, we act like a 16-year-old who's high on speed driving a very strong car. Let me first talk about the European Union and the notion of the sick man of Europe. The nice thing about the situation is that there's always somebody who's the sick man of Europe. 10 years ago, Germany was the sick man of Europe, if you remember. France was almost the sick woman or sick man of Europe. Britain was the sick man of Europe. Sweden in '93, Czech Republic in '89. So my point is that it goes around. To me, it's a merry-go-round. I call it merry-go-round crisis. Firstly, out of definition, if you have 27 states, one of them will always be doing the worst, while one of them will be always doing the best. What's nice about economy is that we don't know the pattern in which this goes. That's a nice thing. And the second it's a mystery. And the second nice thing is that it barely happens that this illness is stuck with just one country. We sort of take turns. So this is, for me, the situation in Europe. Fame is an important thing for a philosopher or writer or an artist. And it's appropriate that a good philosopher receives appropriate fame. However, if this fame becomes the most important thing for this artist, chances are that he's not going to do his art very well. I think this is true for companies as well. I mean, if you prioritize your growth over anything else, over the health of your employees, over the satisfaction of your customers, over the quality of the products that you do, and you lose the love for the kunst, for your purpose of being an artist, philosopher, or somebody who sells shoes or produces shoes, then chances are you're sliding on a slippery slope. Okay, I have a herd of cows, 100 cows, and I can either make long-term profits by milking the cows and making sure that they multiply and that they have healthy things, blah 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 blah. Or I can make revenue by killing one cow after another, and the herd will last me for I don't know how many years. Depends how much my owners pressure me to show increase in profits. So if my owners want a very radical increase in profits, yeah, okay, I kill or I sell half of my herd, and it will look like a very successful company, but not in long term.